How's it going, everybody? I'm Eddie,
I'm Dom.
and this is the Monsters, Metal, and Moonsaults inaugural podcast. How's it going, Dom?
Going good, Ed. Ed, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm pretty excited about the podcast. I think we're gonna get, thousands of listeners in a matter of days or weeks or months or however long it'll take. But I'm excited just to bullshit about what we're gonna bullshit about. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm excited about it too. With everything we've tried getting off the ground, I feel like this is a better launching point. So let's. I'm looking forward to this.
and as it says in the title, it's Monsters, Metal, and Moonsault. So we're gonna be covering monster movies or monster media, I guess. Metal, which we both, love, and that's heavy metal, not the material metal. And of course, Moonsault refers to the wrestling end of it. So we just want to introduce ourselves, tell you who we are, why we think we're, credible enough to waste your time for an hour or however long it's going to be, a week or a month or whatever it's going to be. So, Dom, why don't you kick it off? How'd you get into wrestling?
The first tidbit of wrestling I got was in 1979. Uh, Walking to the bathroom, there's a little kid in New York, and my stepdad had on WOR. And lo and behold, on the TV, on the old wooden Zenith, the indestructible Zeniths,
Right.
uh, was I'm pretty sure at that point it was Tony Gurria wrestling the Hammerhager. And I saw that with the old silver ropes from back in the day,
Yep.
and a young Vince McMahon commentating. I looked at that, I was like, that looks cool. And that was actually my first hook on wrestling right away. Hooked at that point. And my mother did her best to block me from watching it, but about 2 years later, I found the fucking WWE again, WWF at the time, on a different night, and then I caught on to it, NWA at the same time. So childhood got hooked. Don't know what really attracted me to it, other than I like watching guys in their underwear beat each other up.
All right. Well, that goes in line with 2026.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good. For me, it was it was my first Holy Communion, and we had a party in our basement. And by the way, for you people that don't know, a basement is like a room that's underneath your house.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's like an attic below, right? That's a good way of putting it. And for those of you who don't know what an attic is, that's a basement above. So,
The basement at the top of the house.
right. So anyway, there was a party in the basement and it ran late and it was like quarter to 12 and my father was like, "Do you want to watch wrestling?" And like you stated, WOR Channel 9, local New York. It started at midnight every Saturday. And when your dad asks you to watch something at midnight, you don't really give a shit what it is. You're just, watching TV with your father at midnight.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the hell wrestling was. And I remember I turned it on, and the first thing they showed was Vince McMahon talking about how superstar Billy Graham beat Bruno Sammartino for the title. And they went to Baltimore. They showed the clip where he had him in the abdominal stretch and he flipped him over, and then he got him in the corner and got him down and put his feet on the top rope and got the win. And then the next thing, it was a commercial. And I don't know if it was the first match that they showed in its entirety, but I remember George the Animal Steel. And it was like he came down to the ring, and I see this dude with a green tongue and a bald head and fur. And I'm like, holy shit, these are like cartoon characters, but they're like alive. They're real people. And he, did the turnbuckle and did his fucking crazy sounds and shit. And he had the
Mhm.
tongue lapping about. And ever since then, like right after that, it was every week. It was like, are we gonna watch wrestling? Are we gonna watch wrestling? Are we gonna watch wrestling? So that's how it started for me. And since then, it was just I've gone berserk. So
I think that George the Animal Steel is probably the earliest heel I can remember from wrestling. That stuck with me was George the Animal Steel because of the green
Right.
tongue and ripping the turnbuckle apart, and he was so hairy it fit. You know, his name was a perfect fit
Yeah, it was fur. It wasn't even hair, it was fur. And that was the
for
weird
him.
thing too. It was like he had hair everywhere except where normal regular people do have hair on their head, you know? So yeah,
Yeah,
it was like I said, it was like a freaking cartoon character come to life.
yeah.
So what about metal? How'd you get into metal?
Metal was oh shit. The earliest memory of metal for me is going to be hearing Iron Man playing on the radio in the 70s, um, and Deep Purple. But I got into metal consciously in around '83 with Rainbow in the Dark from Dio. That's my first real injection of metal. Soon after that, Ozzy and stuff. Um, it was the cool music I got introduced to by this chubby kid, James, in my grade school. I don't remember James' last name. James lived in Woodside. Rode the bus together, and he was the one who had all the good cassettes. He had the parents who were not being overly protective, so he had the ability to venture out and get the cool stuff, and then infect other people like myself with it from that early age. And then going into my teens, it was all metal at that point. Lots and lots and lots. Did I say lots of Black Sabbath?
Lots.
Uh, Black Sabbath, lots of Black Sabbath, Kiss, Slayer, Anthrax. Not so much Metallica at that point. Uh, not so much Megadeth yet, but those were my initial staples of metal. And then hard rock, Van Halen, and Led Zeppelin. A lot of that stuff in the beginning. And Ozzy. I had all of Ozzy's early stuff instantly on cassette tape because for me at that point, cassettes were more that made more sense than having vinyl.
That
What
was
about
the
you?
vinyl. I was the vinyl guy. I was, you know, I liked seeing the big pictures. And when I first really got, I mean, the first band I got into was Kiss.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I didn't even know what I don't even think they had cassettes yet. Like generally, it was friggin' eight tracks.
I remember eight
And
tracks. It was eight tracks back then.
yeah, an album. So it was Kiss early, just because this kid upstairs from me was into like Jethro Tull and Zeppelin and the Stones, and he had posters all over his walls, and he had the monster models, the old ones that you glue together and they glow
Yeah.
in the dark. And he'd have like Ghidra hanging from his ceiling with like fishing wire and shit. And I was like, he was the older kid with long hair, and I was like, oh man, he's cool. So I remember I was at a department store with my mother named Two Guys, and she would often look through the Elvis albums and oldies and shit like that. And I saw the Kiss albums, and I was like, you know, could you get me these? It was Hotter Than Hell and the first album. And she was like, no, I'm not getting those. I'm like, please, I gotta have these, man. I've got to show Manual. And she's like, all right, I'll get you this one, but not this one. And it was the first album, not Hotter Than Hell, because Hotter Than Hell had those suggestive images on the
Right.
album cover. So she got me Hotter Than Hell, the first album. We drove home. I jumped out of the car, ran up the stairs, and I'm like, Manuel, look what I got. And he's like, ah, these guys suck. And I was like crushed, you know?
Uh-huh.
But I listened to it and didn't really understand it because I was, you know, like 5 or 6 or whatever. But there were kids at school that started talking about Kiss, and that's when I started listening to Kiss. But metal came along. We had similar paths. My aunt had Paranoid, and I used to listen to her albums all the time. And I always listened to side one of Paranoid. I didn't give a shit about side two.
Mhm.
So and Iron Man was like the big song. Like I remember my grandfather coming into my aunt's bedroom where I'd listen to her records, and he'd be like, "Are you gonna listen to anything else already?" Like over and over. I can hear him today doing that. so that was the first introduction, but I primarily grew up in Jersey City, which is it was predominantly like disco, and I mean there was a little bit of rock, but not much. It was mostly disco and like early hip hop. So I was into Kiss, disco, and early hip hop at the
Uh-huh.
same time, and like a little bit of Elvis and shit with my and Beatles with my parents. But when I moved to the burbs in Richfield Park, that's when I got introduced to metal, and the first thing that I got introduced to was Holy Diver, and I remember being blown away by Rainbow in the Dark. And then after that, it was just like I think it was Judas Priest after that because the one kid I made friends with, it was like Defenders of the Faith was just coming out, and he
Hmm.
was like, check this out, and then it became I gotta buy everything. So that's how it pretty much started for me. And by the way, everybody listening, if you can't tell by the accents, Jersey City is in New Jersey and Woodside is in New York.
Yeah.
So,
And actually, there's this guy, musician that's on my Facebook. I met the dude. He's got good music. This guy Bob D. He lives pretty close to where I grew up in Queens. So when he posts pictures back at the holidays, I jumped on there. I was like, I know this is 43rd and QB. Is White
uh,
Castle still up the street on 37th? Is it still the 7th train? Are you on the Astoria side or the Long Island City side? And he's like, I'm in Sunnyside. So I was like, oh, you're stuck in the middle. But yeah,
all right. So for those of you who don't know, Sunnyside is in the middle of what the fuck did you say? What other sides?
it's like Sunnyside stuck between Woodside and Astoria.
All right, cool. So it's monsters, metal, geography, and Moonsaults.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. What about the what do we got left?
Monsters.
Monsters. How about that?
Yeah. So Godzilla. I mean, it's just gonna get straight. It was Godzilla is the first, and frankly, it could be an argument on my point that Godzilla and Hammer's Dracula, Christopher Lee, are the first exposures I had to monsters. But the more impactful one was definitely Godzilla. He used to be on WPIX Channel 11 every afternoon after school. To be Godzilla. They'd show a hacked up version of a Godzilla movie, and then on the weekends they catch a full version of whatever. And I was just instantly into Godzilla. If I remember, the very first Godzilla movie I ever saw was Godzilla the original with Raymond Burr,
Yeah.
and then I'd see because PIX showed these things during the afternoon when kids were home. You'd see the kid Godzilla stuff, basically Godzilla's Revenge and Son of Godzilla, stuff like that was on. But then I get around to catching the cooler Godzilla movies on the weekend, like Godzilla versus Megalon. Uh, Monster Zero was huge back then. For anybody who doesn't know, Monster Zero is King Ghidorah, the sequel. So that's how I got involved with monsters and never look back. Never have not been a Godzilla fan since, um, to the point where I've owned every single movie. One point I had a whole bunch of collectibles that I could have spent my money more wisely, but didn't regret a second of buying them. And like I said, right at that point in time too, for other monsters that aren't kaiju, that word didn't exist when I was a kid. Uh, Christopher Lee's Dracula, the very first like horror movie I saw would be Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and Hammer Horror's Horror of Dracula. And that same afternoon, Monster Club with Vincent Price. So there's my earliest introduction to monsters. And what would be yours, Mr. Edward?
Well, the first like monsters that probably remember seeing was like I'm gonna guess and say it was Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein.
Forgot about that. That's you throw that in there for me too.
But as far as the big monsters or kaiju related monsters, I mean, I know I like dinosaurs early, but when we get into another story, my mother used to have a phobia called agoraphobia, where she couldn't leave the house and she'd wake up in the middle of the night with these panic attacks.
Yeah.
Um, and my father used to own a bar close by, so he wasn't around late nights. So she would wake me up and play like Shoots and Ladders and like friggin' Candyland or Monopoly or whatever. And oftentimes she'd wake me up and be like, "You want to watch Lucy with me?" I love Lucy, shit like that. But the one
Yeah.
time she woke me up in the middle of the night and it was like, "You want to watch Godzilla?" And again, it was like my father with wrestling. Your mom wakes you up and it's dark out. You want to watch TV? Sure, I definitely. And I remember sitting there watching Godzilla, just like my freaking mouth wide open, like, what am I watching? And that night after Godzilla was over and I went back to sleep, I woke up in the middle of the night crying. And when my mother came in and she asked me what was wrong, I told her they killed Godzilla. And I'm like, now that I look back on it, I didn't give a fuck about, the thousands of people that Godzilla killed. I just cared that, they killed Godzilla. And then, after that, it was the same as you. It was the 4:30 movie. It was the
Yep.
4:30 movie, Monday through Friday. It was on from 4:30 to 6 with commercials. So the movie itself was like an hour and 12 minutes. So yeah, that was my first thing. And I remember like I'm sure you did the same thing. It was like after school, you couldn't wait to get the hell home to watch these Godzilla movies because there was no DVDs or VHS yet. It was just when it was on, it was on, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was how it was for me in the beginning too. Was when I got home, it's like, get your homework done, and I tried starting it on the school bus, and then pretend it was done until after Godzilla and the other good stuff in the afternoon was over. And then I go do my homework.
Oh, I just always said I had no homework, and then like did it the next morning. And
Yeah,
for some,
my mother was a nutcase. She wouldn't let me get away with that.
I think my mother would be the nutcase for not realizing I didn't have any homework. But
Or she could
then,
be the cool mom who ignored that.
but then it would be, the teacher would call my mother and be like, Eddie hasn't handed in his homework, and however long it's been. So, you know, that sucked for me, obviously.
I had a few of those in my youth. The phone call from the teacher because I didn't hand in an assignment I was supposed to do or get the shit they sent home from school signed by my mom, even if it wasn't something that was of a disciplinary action or anything, just something that had to actually be signed, like, you know, emergency contact forms or something.
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. and then the phone call would come, and then I regret not getting the emergency contact form signed so they could call somebody because now I'm in an emergency.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep, I remember that. That's yeah, that's for you youngsters if you care to listen to us, old farts. It seemed like it was much more of an event to, not have on-demand stuff. I remember like getting home from school, getting out of my plaid Catholic school outfit, getting in my clothes and getting my like bowl of cereal or whatever the fuck, and getting in front of the TV so I could, pound the floor enough to get the TV to tune in right, just in time for the movie. So yeah, and I remember it was like the one network had like a certain amount of movies, and like Channel 9 on like Thanksgiving Day would have a different set of movies, and then Channel 7 would have different ones, and Channel 5 would even have them every once in a while. But it was like they were broken
Oh,
up.
the breakup. So Channel 5 showed on the Godzilla stuff. Channel 5 showed Son of Godzilla. That's where I saw that. That was on that one. And it used to be Godzilla versus Sea Monster back then, Ibira. Those two were on Channel 5. Channel 9, we know it does King Kong, Son of Kong on
Yeah,
Thanksgiving, Godzilla versus
King Kong
Kong,
escapes.
King Kong Escapes, Godzilla and Megalon were the ones
Yep.
that I saw on Channel 9. And every year, because those only played once a year, I look forward to that. That's why I want it for Thanksgiving. It's like, give me my turkey,
Yeah.
everybody else kick rocks. I'm watching my movies. And
Yeah.
then Channel 11 had the rest. at least as I remember. The rest of them that they would show in that area. Then as I got older, there was movies I never saw, like the original Ghidorah, Three-Headed Monster I didn't see back then.
Right.
Godzilla Raids Again, all that was on PIX. So that was the breakdown. I remember. Oh, you brought up ABC, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. That's where I saw
You
that.
know
And
what? You
Terra
know what?
Mechagodzilla.
Now that I remember, ABC was the 4:30 movie,
Yeah,
not
that's where I saw.
PIX. That's right.
Oh,
Yep.
ABC had the 4:30 movie, but PIX had the Godzilla, whatever they called it, every afternoon. Godzilla was
Yeah.
on that channel every afternoon, but you get the full movie on ABC when they actually would show it. Uh, they showed a lot of stuff on that ABC thing, like Roger Corman stuff and other movies I could care less about.
Well, I remember
But
it was themed. It was like one week they'd have horror, one week they'd have Western, next week they'd have romance, and then they'd
yeah,
get to monsters and yeah, it was themed. But
the only time I cared was monsters.
well, horror sometimes too when they do horror week, but a lot of them were, like sometimes it was shit that I didn't give a damn about. But yeah, it was mostly the monsters because I get to see other shit like Yungery and Gamera and stuff like that too.
Yeah, that's where I catch Gamera too. If although I think Gamera was the other Gamera the Invincible was on PIX in black and white. And I
Yep,
remember watching that and thinking, um, I don't like this. It's not Godzilla. And then there was another one on PIX where he gets hacked up. I know you got the T-shirt of this thing, the one with the knife head. That
you're
one
on.
was on. Yeah, you're on. He's on fighting Gamera on PIX. But I do remember seeing other Gamera stuff on ABC. Um, so yeah, the Monster Week was fun. That brings back memories. A grandmother's green carpet, laying down there eating a bag of potato of Wise chips, and watching that movie and realizing now as I'm an old man that the reason why they let me do all that is because it kept me out of their way.
That's funny.
Give them a bag of chips and a yoo-hoo in the monster movies. It's fine.
Yoo-hoo. Yep. And wise potato chips. Yeah, for me it was usually a bowl of cereal. It's probably usually Captain Crunch or peanut butter Captain Crunch or Golden Green. You know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Bunch of shit I shouldn't be eating.
at that age, the only fucking Captain Crunch we had was Captain Crunch and peanut butter Captain Crunch. A couple years later, they made that berry bullshit too.
The berry Crunchberry came after that.
Yeah, but the first two I remember was I could be wrong. I wasn't a huge Captain Crunch fan because whenever I ate that shit, it hurt the roof of my mouth.
Oh, I loved it, but I had to you had to sit there for like 20 minutes and let it soak into the cereal, the milk.
Yeah, it's one of the few cereals that you could eat as a kid that you really needed to actually let it start getting soggy before you
Right.
hurt yourself.
Right. So what do you think of the Monsterverse?
Uh, Godzilla 2014 was good. It was way better than I expected it to be. I like King of the Monsters, but it took a downward spiral at that point with the story structure.
Jesus, that
Um,
fucking movie with the actors. I mean, the cast, way too friggin' many.
yeah, um, it detracted a little bit. What I did like about the movie is all the Toho homages that are in it.
Yep,
For a deep fanatic, most people who are into the MonsterVerse really aren't probably don't know a lot about the Toho lore, but there's a lot of Toho homages in there. Same for Kong versus Godzilla. That's just not only is it just a blatant nod to King Kong versus Godzilla from '62, but a lot of Toho homages in that one. It's a Toho movie. It might be a MonsterVerse movie, but I consider it a Toho movie. That's why when I reviewed the movie, it came out as like it's a Toho movie. And then the last one with New Empire, again, it's a Toho movie done in a MonsterVerse. It's they heavily borrow from Toho's tag team kaiju structure from the early '70s.
and that's you were talking about. A lot of Easter eggs, right down to specific shots, like in Godzilla King of the Monsters, the shot of Ghidorah and Godzilla when they pull back.
Yep,
That was from I forgot what previous movie it was. It might have been the 92 Godzilla versus King Ghidorah with the time travel.
it is. That's where they borrowed that shot from.
Right.
Um, that's actually kind of what I should have been more specific about. Was there's a lot of 85 to 95 nods in that movie. So you got to be a deep Godzilla fan because those movies at one point were pretty difficult to find in the States.
Well, even going back to Godzilla versus Kong quick, the biggest Easter egg for me was, and everybody, lots of Godzilla and Kong fans were hoping for it, but we didn't think we'd get it. The recreation of shoving the tree in Godzilla's mouth.
Yeah, yeah,
Like we even got that, which was great.
yeah. Yeah, they did do a good job. I actually thought the way they structured the battle between Kong and Godzilla in the MonsterVerse version is really well done. Godzilla. Let's take the wrestling terms out of it. Godzilla is the heel and Kong is the baby face,
Yep.
and they build that throughout the story. And Kong, I thought he did a really good job with how he could approach the fight with Godzilla. So, being as small as he was and stuff, they took all that into consideration and structured a good fight scene between the monsters.
Yeah, I like the one on the raft. I remember seeing the trailer for it, thinking this is fucking stupid. Like, there's no way they'd be able to, you know, stand on a friggin' ship at the same time, even if it is a big, gigantic, military ship. But I didn't, you got to suspend belief when you're watching a freaking Godzilla movie anyway. Did you ever see the video? Like, there's videos of like, how is Godzilla standing up in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah, they're actually kind of comical.
Yeah, like one I saw, it was like him walking, but he had like giant like high heels on.
Uh huh.
And another one, there was the story is that when he gets in the water, his legs can stretch all the way to the ocean floor, and they like kind of like they get smaller as he approaches land shore, and by the time he gets to land shore, they're regular legs.
Yeah, there's a little fucking turkey leg nubs.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right, right. So, what about what was the first concert you ever went to?
Oh, geez. Count. If I'm gonna count the first concert I ever went to is gonna have it's gonna be Battle of the Bands in high school.
Well, I mean,
But as
concert,
far as
concert.
like concert, um, shit, Typo Negative opening for Queensryche in '94 at Jones Beach.
Oh shit! Wow.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of concerts as a little kid due to the parenting factor, and without not going into it in here, let's just say that there was a better chance at me being dipped in tar than going to a concert in my childhood. So even with the sneaking off stuff, if I could have done it. So no, I was in too controlled an environment to go enjoy concerts. So I applaud all those kids who had the parents that let them do that. Um, but moving on, yeah, it was Typo Negative and Queensryche, 94, Jones Beach. And the only reason I went was for Typo Negative. I didn't go for Queensryche. But since I spent the money on the tickets, I stuck around for Queensryche and they put on a good show. Um, that's the first one. What about you? Wait, let me guess. Let me guess. Kiss,
Uh,
77, 78.
earlier
Okay.
even. It was actually Bob Seger and the Jay Giles band
Oh yeah, I heard this recently.
opening
They
opening up for Kiss.
opening for Kiss. That's
Yes.
right. That's right. You know, it doesn't sound like they would fit on a bill with Kiss, but
No.
I have seen Kiss on bills with other bands that maybe scratch my head, um, including Aerosmith when they did that joint tour together. I was like, what the fuck?
That was I
Why?
remember I remember seeing that tour and you're talking about when they were all old already, right? Not back in the 70s.
No, not in the '70s. I'm talking about during their
Right.
millennial run.
during their post-retirement tours.
Yes.
Um, I remember seeing that tour and Kiss went on first,
Yep.
and there was a bunch of it was like us in a big group, and the one girl was a huge Aerosmith fan, and this will let everybody know where my allegiance lies. She's a big Aerosmith fan, and after Aerosmith was done, she looked at me and she was like, "That's it." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "It can't be." And I'm like, "Yeah, they did Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, Dream On. They did everything." And she's like, "Why does it seem like they didn't do enough?" And I'm like, "Because Kiss opened up for them, and you saw Kiss first. I'm like, you don't need to see anything after Kiss. That was it." And she was like, "No, that's not it." I'm like, "Yeah, that's it. That's it." So yeah, but yeah, for me it was 76 Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City. Roosevelt Stadium was they'd have events there, but it was mostly a baseball stadium for the Jersey City Indians,
Mhm.
minor league baseball team for the Oakland A's. And yeah, my aunt, I I wanted to see the Village People, and my aunt on my birthday came to my house and gave me my birthday present. And before I even opened it, she went, "They didn't have Village People tickets." And I remember I opened it and saw the Kiss tickets, and I was like, you know, it was like they were pieces of gold in my hand to friggin' Indiana Jones or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And that was, yeah, that was the first show, Roosevelt Stadium. Then after that, it was my second concert was Kiss at the Garden, and then my third concert was Kiss at the Garden. And my fourth concert was Kiss at the Garden, and then it was Queen in 1981 at the Garden, maybe. Whenever the game came out with Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah. So if I remember right, that's 80.
Yeah, 80, 80.
It's the same year. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure it's the same year that the Wall came out.
Yep, yep. And that was the sixth concert, the Wall tour, because I was obsessed with the Wall, and my aunt took me to see the Wall at Nassau, and I remember everybody was cursing at the end of the show as they were leaving because Pink Floyd only did the Wall. They didn't do anything from Wish You Were Here or Dark Side or anything. It was just the Wall. Good night, everybody. And people were
Well,
kind of pissed.
uh, it is 80. I just did the double check,
Yeah,
and the Wall was my introduction to Pink Floyd.
that
Uh,
song, Another Brick in the Wall, was that what like kicked it off?
that song and that album. Yeah, that's my first memorable introduction to Floyd. I'm not saying I didn't hear him before that on the radio, but me remembering Pink Floyd and knowing who Pink Floyd was, it was The Wall when it came out, and the song, the album, and my mother going to see that show with a bunch of youngsters at the time, and I was home, some babysitter abroad named Susie. So that's probably why that sticks in my head the most.
I remember that
Susie was
song.
Biggins.
Oh, so she was popular.
Susie was a popular girl. Yeah. Susie was a popular girl, and me at the ripe age of 6 was like, I don't know what I like about Susie, but I like Susie.
Right, right. That it was the song for me. I remember hearing the song on like AM radio,
Mhm.
WABC, probably hearing Another Brick in the Wall and something about like the second verse when the kids are singing.
Yeah.
That's what kind of got me. And then I got the single, and then my mother got the album for my birthday, and then so on and so on. But my first metal concert was Priest in at MSG. We got first row. We scalped them like the day before at one of those quote unquote ticket agencies.
Uh
It
huh.
was in the Willowbrook Mall, and they were first row $50. And it was like a little off to the side, and yeah, it was first row. And it was funny because the girl behind me was on some dude's shoulders like the whole time, and every time Rob Halford would come over, she'd flash him. Like, little did we know. Like, and Rob was like, I remember him like pointing at her and like smiling and shit. And I guess he was just like, all right, I'll make her think I'm into it or whatever. But yeah, that was the first concert. Well,
You
metal
know,
concert.
but him and her have a lot more in common, though. If you stop and think about it, they both like guys. So maybe he's just being cool with her because he understands the language of boobs. But now he probably at the time thought that she could get him some good looking dudes.
Wow, that's a good way to peel away the onion and, give us some layers to it as opposed to me just like, yeah, he didn't fucking like boobs. No, that was good. That was good.
Her, my first actual metal concert was, well, I guess you got to count typo negative because they were metal,
Hmm?
but where I blatantly went to go see metal, I would say it's not Lollapalooza, even though I went to Lollapalooza in '96 for Metallica. Um, and Metallica turned out to be the worst part of that show. The best part of that show was Rancid. They stole the show.
Wow.
Rancid and the Ramones played back to back, and that
Shit.
hour of punk rock stole the show. But it'll be Ozfest. There was no way I was missing Sabbath with the original
Who
four. So,
who else played?
oh, on the main stage, I can't tell you the second stage because I didn't give a shit.
Right.
Other than it was supposed to be Judas Priest headlining the main stage, and they weren't on that particular show. I would have gave a shit about that to go see them with Ripper. But main stage, System of the Down. Then we had System of the Down, Primus, Slayer,
Huh.
the Deftones, uh, Rob Zombie, Godsmack, and Sabbath.
Jesus.
And Godsmack is when this wasn't meant to be delivered on Godsmack. That's when I went to go take a piss and get something to fucking eat. And it took that long waiting online to do those two things that Godsmack's set was heard, not seen. Um, for the 35, 40 minutes they were on stage. Yeah, and then they came on. That they were done. The one that disappointed me was how early Slayer was on. I was like, why is Slayer on so early? And but the crowd went, the crowd was quiet. They made fun of Primus. System of a Down was still new at that point. But when Slayer came on, all of a sudden the Slayer fans came out of wherever they were hiding. So I do remember that quite well. My first Slayer experience was it was a good time.
Now, how did they make fun of Primus?
They give him less Claypool shit. Primus sucks and all that stuff.
Well,
But at
because
that
go ahead.
at that time though, I didn't realize that's what the fans do.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say because I saw it was Anthrax and Public Enemy at the Ritz. The Ritz also everybody's in it was in New York City, most famously known for a lot of the MTV concerts in the 80s. They showed the Guns N' Roses one there, the Cult, Great White, and a bunch of other ones. But anyway, yeah, it was at the Ritz in New York. Wait a second.
空に輝く真っ赤な太陽ジェッジャガージェッジャガー僕らのジャガー
All right, so after a brief moment of fucked upness, we're back and we're gonna pick up where we left off, which was the Ritz with Public Enemy, Anthrax, and Primus was the second band on the bill. I forgot it was a younger rap group on first, but Primus went on second. And I remember Les Claypool in between songs would chant. That's all he would say is "We are Primus," and the crowd would chant "And you suck." He'd say "And we are Primus," and they'd say "And you suck." And yeah, so I'm guessing that's probably what you saw at Ozfest.
Yeah. At that
Right.
point, I did. But I was back then. my Primus knowledge was Pork Soda,
Right.
not the entire library. So, and I was actually surprised the only song off Pork Soda they played was Mr. Crinkle. That's not true. I take that back.
My Name is
They,
Mud.
Mr. Crinkle.
They didn't play My Name is Mud?
They did not play My Man is Mud. They did Mr. Crinkle,
Wow.
and they opened with Hamburger Train.
Interesting.
That fucking long ass instrumental they have.
Yeah, I remember I got into their first album. Well, I don't know if it's their first album. The one before that with Tommy the Cat and Jerry Was a Race Car Driver.
Yeah, that's is that Caesar Cheese?
Sailing the Seas of Cheese. Yep. Yep. That was an indication that I didn't realize metal was pretty much over by then. If that's what was crossing the lines into the metal shows with Slayer and Metallica, metal wasn't doing too good.
No,
But
no, it was over.
yeah, it was on life support for a while.
You know, you could argue actually that's their best album because even those damn blue collar tweakers on there, um, that whole album's pretty good.
What, Seas of Cheese?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It's the one I listened to the most out of any of their albums. So it's an interesting thing about Primus though. Were you ever into Possessed?
know of them. So no, not into, but I know of them.
That's the guitar player from Possessed, Larry LeVolt.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
No.
when Possessed kind of went away,
Mhm.
he joined friggin' Primus of all bands. That's you wouldn't expect a dude from Possessed to go to Primus. So, um, what else? We got a few minutes left. Anything else you want people to know about you, other than the fact that you were somewhere in Wood something in New York?
I grew up in
Woodside.
Queens, Woodside.
Woodside, right, right.
Uh, know about me? Nah, actually, I think the way it went sounds pretty good.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll just wrap it up here since it's our first one and we were kind of flying by the seats of our pants. Just letting everybody know, like I said, who we are and what we're doing. I'm sure in the future we're going to be more topical as far as our episodes goes, whether it be wrestling or monsters or metal. Between those three topics, there's a shitload of stuff to talk about. So
Yeah, there is. But you want to be topical? We could be topical right now. I got one. We could discuss our 10 most iconic wrestlers in
we got
wrestling history.
we got like 5 minutes left.
Then we'll have to do this on the next episode. Excuse me, people who are actually paying attention. Never mind my fucking retarded brain coming up with plans at the closing moments.
So that's what you have to look forward to. No retarded brains and our top 10 most iconic wrestlers of all time.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's just remember that Dom was the one who said retarded, not me. I was just referencing the fact that he said retarded. So if anybody's gonna come after him, it's Dom. It's Dom said it, not Eddie. All right.
Yeah, you bring it, and I'll explain to you in the comment section as to why that is not a bad word and politically correct equals pussy.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been to New York or you've never hung out with a New Yorker, there you go, my friends, right there. Right.
You can all get the fuck out of here now, too.
Well, with that, we're gonna wrap things up. I guess this has been the Monsters Metal and Moonsaults podcast, also known as Triple M. Once again, I'm Eddie,
And I'm Dom.
and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
So warm. Thanks for fucking listening.